All right. So today we are going to talk about this post which went extremely viral on Instagram, and a lot of people have very different opinion about this post. And this post basically talks about the danger of minimalist design. So let's go through this post, and I'll basically do a commentary on what this post is saying and what I feel about this post. Right. To start with, this is the first tweet. It says what I'm talking about is unconscious, small, and minimalism, which has become the social default for seemingly every design choice, whether architectural or corporate or anything else. It is troubling phenomenon because of what minimalism represents, a lack of detail, which I feel is incorrect. Like, I agree that a lot of places have got this minimalism in place or are adopting minimalism rather than any other style, but it is not necessarily a lack of detail. You can say that by twisting what minimalism is, but minimalism, if you want to look at it in a positive way, it is lack of clutter. It is focus on the essentials, right? So that basically is minimalism. All right, so going to the next tweet. So why does detail matter? Think of it as identity. Agreed. What gives the phone box on the left side its distinctive character? The details, colors, moldings around the door, the ornamentation on the top. Okay, ornamentation, molding, whatever. The phone box on the right has no real detail and no character. Okay, so again, it's slightly neutral in nature, right? But neutrality is not a lack of taste; it's a taste in itself. Right? So this thing has its own taste, and that taste is called neutral. This thing has a little bit of flavor, so I understand that. So I would not say that it doesn't have a character. It has a character which is neutral. This has more character into it. But to understand why even we have moved to this kind of design, we need to understand that this kind of design helps in mass manufacturing, right? In the sense that if you want any design to be scaled in the sense that multiple number of units needs to be produced, then this kind of design is actually much better because that it uses less material. It is easy to transport. Like, for example, this is more modular, right? You can just move things around. Everything would be flat sheet, and then you just take it, carry it around. So basically the ease of business is the reason why this thing is more prevalent. And when I say business, obviously the cost is very important, hence this is very widely used because it's very scalable as in multiple numbers can be shipped. Now if this is not required, or this is not a criteria for any design, then we can say that okay, maybe we should look at something else other than minimalism also. There is choice. But if we are trying to build a business out of it by scaling products, then maybe this is the design that we would go for anyway. So I'm not necessarily talking about beauty here. I'm just talking about things having some discernible qualities and characteristics. Okay, the bullet on the left is hardly beautiful. This is hardly beautiful, but it does have some character. Okay, the one on the right, it exists. That's all. See, I agree that adding a bit of character is something that a designer can do. So I think I can tackle all of this together, all the three examples together. So the second example is about benches in the park. Okay, so earlier some of the older benches had so much of character with all this. What is this? Dragon, horse, something. Oh, this is a camel. Okay, and so much of floral design is around, but this is now more minimalistic. Okay, I get it. So benches have been minimalized, and then even the doorbell nice example here, the doorbell is now also minimalist. And okay, fine. So what are my thoughts on this? Objects don't sit on their own, they sit in an environment, right? So we cannot isolate an object from its environment and say that this only has a character and this doesn't have a character. We have to look at the entire environment and see whether the object complements it or contrasts it, right? And that's a decision that a designer takes, right? Whether they want that object to complement everything around them or contrast everything around them, right? So that's what I mean when I say objects don't sit independently. They are part of the environment, and environment has objects that are mass produced and objects that are customized, right? So again, like I said, when it is mass produced, then minimalism is actually a better design for business concerns, right? So and imagine if everything around the park is mass produced, all right, and then you are told that you need to also build a fountain. So then as a designer you have two choices: either to complement the entire aesthetics of the park or contrast it, right? So I think that's a choice that people usually take. For example, doorbell is something that maybe because your entire aesthetics in the house is very minimalistic, you chose the doorbell to be minimalistic as well. Similarly for this benches, maybe the entire park has similar theme, so they chose this. So all these examples are where designers have made a choice to complement this design, right? So this particular object needs to complement the environment, hence these choices were made as a designer. But yeah, it's not always necessary that it has to happen. For example, certain statement objects in a particular environment can be maximalistic in nature as well. Okay, I don't know if there is a word called maximalistic. I'm just saying it as an opposite word for minimalistic design. For example, if you have a bedroom or let's say a drawing room full of IKEA furnitures, okay, everything is very minimalistic, white and everything, but you have this one, what do you call it, sofa, which you want to have a lot of character. Okay, so in that case you might want to choose something that is not minimalistic in nature, right? You maybe want that to be the showpiece of the house, or maybe that is the statement of your house. That is one context where we can say, yeah, I mean, don't go for minimalism, try something else. Don't just try to fit in. So I agree in that context, not in everywhere, right? Because we have to look at the environment and look at the object and not just object in isolation. And also, yeah, another thing is only rich were able to afford very customized things, right? Back in the days when, especially when trade routes were not so open in the world, right? So back then, actually it was also a status symbol. All this maximalistic things that you're wearing, right? A frock that has so many layers of material and then so much intricacy designs and everything. Rich people would wear it because poor people couldn't afford it. And that is what differentiated a rich look and a poor look. Rich look used to be that, right? Which is a lot of materialistic elements into your design, right? Because you wanted to show that, hey, I can afford it. That's how it was. But today you would see a different ideology altogether for rich. Okay, what is the ideology? Imagine you going to a mall. Okay, if you are from a middle class family, you would put on your best dress. Okay, you would put on your best shirt, you would put on your best jeans, best shoes, and go to the mall. And at the same time, you would see people who are actually rich. They would wear their home clothes and just, probably a half pant and a half t-shirt and just go into a mall. The reason is, what they are signaling is that maybe you poor people, for you the mall is a very fancy place, but for me it's just like going to the backyard, right? So I'll go in my comfortable clothes. I won't wear my suits and blazers or anything, right? So that's a status signaling, and that's the ideology change that we have seen. Okay, so another example is, notorious, why is it notorious, but anyway, this is a notorious recent example wherein Warner Brothers have changed their logo from this to this. Like I said, it makes sense, right? So you again have to think about the environment, the context of use as well. Let's say now we are more into digital world, right? And digital world, I don't have to explain why UI design has to be minimal, right? Basically declutter. We talked about that, right? Minimalism is focus on essentials and lack of clutter, right? So UI design has a very important element, which is minimalism, and a very essential element because that helps in decluttering the interface. Now, if declutter is a big element of your app, then you would also want everything to be complementary to that app as well, right? Because when you are saying it has to have a branded feel, look and feel to it, then you would probably want your logo and everything to match the digital aesthetics as well. So maybe because of that, maybe because of this clarity that you get at scale as well. For example, look at this and look at this. Okay, if I zoom out, which is more readable, right? Because this has less detail, the focus is easier, right? It is more readable. So at small scale also, logos, minimalistic logos are more readable, more what did you call it, identifiable. So those are some reasons why they would have gone in that direction. Acha, let's read from here. The thing with detail and therefore identity, okay, is that people have different tastes. So to some extent, it imposes something on a person. Okay, things with detail and character and identity imposes something on a person. Okay, default minimalist design strips all identity away from things. Okay, it presents a neutral, clean slate which imposes nothing. Yeah, I mean, I agree. There is no special appeal of a minimalistic design, which is actually sometimes essential, because when it comes to tastes, right? Imagine that you are a popular pub in Bangalore. Then what kind of music do you want to play, right? Popular pub means you appeal to pretty much the mass audience, right? Then try to relate it to the mass production. Okay, so if you have opened a popular pub in Bangalore and you want to play some music, what kind of music do you want to play? Would you play this death metal kind of music? Because it might appeal to some people and they would find it really interesting, right? But for some people, they would find it very irritating and they would not like that place, right? So hence, neutral taste is also very important. You would not want to piss off a lot of people by playing your hardcore screaming music, which to me it is screaming, for somebody else it is music, right? To me it's noise, to somebody else it is music, and they live for it, right? So I might get pissed off, but somebody else might enjoy it anyway. So when small and minimalism has become the social default for everything from benches and bollards to skyscrapers and national assemblies, we have a reduction and absurdum of cultural aesthetics. This is very important. When we say cultural aesthetic, are we really in a disconnected culture? Answer is yes and no. I mean, there is a global culture which unites a lot of people around the globe, and then there are local cultures, right? My local culture is from the state that I belong to, from the city that I belong to. So these are my smaller local this thing. Even my Indian culture is at the world scale local. But my point is, there is also a global culture, right? And global culture means there is a lot of diversity of taste, and hence minimalism might not appeal to, but might just not piss off anybody else, right? So that's the thing. But yeah, I mean, if local culture needs to be prioritized over other things that we discussed about, then definitely we could discard minimalism and go for things with character, especially for objects that are more permanent in nature, right? Architecture is more permanent. It's not like a digital app, every day it just gets updated, right? It's not. Some of the interesting apps gets updated every 6 months because probably they have to justify why they have so many designers. More permanent stuff like architecture, buildings, statues, parks, those things, they should not have minimalism, in my opinion. They should look at what art they want to preserve and follow it. So I agree that in local, when you are talking about local culture, definitely that helps. But if it's a global cultural thing, then you don't have to worry about preserving anything, because whatever we are building is basically the global culture anyway. So perhaps minimalist design is so prevalent because we no longer have anything to say, or we don't want to say something that appeals to a set of people but pisses off another set of people, right? That's what I said before as well. You don't need to explain what the Gothic cathedral says, for example. Okay, this one is Gothic cathedral, very interesting architecture, but the skyscraper, it doesn't say anything really. It's just there. It's just there. This is also just there. No, this is not a walking This is not rolling on wheels. This is just there. This is also just there. But yeah, I mean, I think we have explained, we have talked a lot about this thing anyway. And suddenly everything everywhere starts to look the same. Okay, absolute neutrality, no detail, no identity. What does that say about us? It says that we are using our resources carefully. This is what it says, that as human beings, as global societies, global cultures, we have started to use our resources in a more mindful manner. This is what it says about us anyway. But just to conclude, this is a very interesting thread. I'm glad that it actually blew up. There are situations when minimalism is not required, right? And some of them that I can think of are, one is digital assets. For example, in games, digital assets, again, it doesn't cost you a lot to make a nice detailed sofa versus normal minimalistic sofa. Culture preserving artifacts can think beyond minimalism, definitely. Personal branding, by personal branding, it's not just your website, your portfolio, your resume, all of that. That plus even what you wear, right? You as an individual doesn't need to fit to the environment all the time, right? All our designers keep on wearing this black t-shirt, blue jeans, white sneakers. That's like the uniform of designers. You don't have to be that all the time, right? You can make a choice whether you want to complement with whatever cultural aesthetics things exist around you, or you want to, express yourself the way you want to. And if you like to express yourself as a minimalist, that is also great. There is no problem with it. But if anyone wants to wear something else other than minimalistic things also, I think that should be welcomed, and they should not be very afraid of not fitting into the environment. A distinct object in a neutral environment. I think this is a very general statement, and I've kept it general because it applies to a lot of things, right? For example, in UX design, your delighters need not be your neutral items, right? So let's say a success page can have very interesting items, even though your entire app is boring, bland, and is following a particular design system. Okay, but still, when your success page comes, when your onboarding success happens, or certain messages here and there, 404 pages, there you can have elements of design, and that is basically a contrast from the neutral aesthetics that design is following, right? So I mean, these are some of the places that I feel. But yeah, what does it say about us? Like I said, it says that we as human beings are using our resources carefully, but also, like the entire post is suggesting, that somehow down the line we are losing that character in design, that artsiness in design. Yeah, I mean, the point is that ability to stand out in a crowd is something that not a lot of design and aesthetic choices are being taken around. One thing that we should think about while designing going ahead in future is, do I have to always complement the environment, or is this a thing that can contrast the environment? And I think that would be a good note to end. And the advice basically is, everything doesn't need to be minimal. We have to identify what can go beyond minimalism, right? So that's all. This was a great post, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe.